Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have a moment of silence, please, for all the fellow Highgate residents we lost in the past year, and for those who sacrificed it all for us. Thank you. Just a few things before we get started. Lunch is available. Thanks to the Highgate Volunteer Fire Department. $10 per person, spaghetti, meatballs, salad, roll, drink, and dessert. As it was last year, we'll allow 3 questions per article per person. I'll try to do a better job at that. If you're not a Highgate registered voter, same-day voter registration is available at the check-in table. Please make sure you're registered a voter prior to any paper ballots being called for. There will not be any voter registrations taking place in the middle of a paper ballot vote. As always, just please be respectful of each other and each other's opinions. Thank you. When you would like to ask a question, we're going to have people that are going to bring the mics around. Please wait till you get the microphone. Stand and give your name before you ask your question. Please direct all the questions to me, and then I'll direct it to the appropriate person. There's no campaigning of any kind inside the polling place building. This includes any campaign materials or of any kind, including articles of clothing. Right now, I'd like to the town report dedication to Clarence and Debbie Miller.
So it's my great honor to dedicate our town report to Debbie and Clarence Miller. I'll read the plaque, which is as such. Debbie Miller and Clarence C.J. Miller were raised as part of large families. Debbie in Highgate, Vermont, C.J. in Moores, New York. C.J. joined the U.S. Army after graduation and was stationed in Germany. He continued to serve afterwards by joining the National Guard. Debbie and C.J. met on a blind date back in 1968. They were married on May 9th in 1970 and made their home in Highgate. The happy couple purchased their first home on the Gore Road and raised their 2 children, Michelle and Scott, within walking distance to school, church, and sports. Debbie worked for Union Carbide and then became a stay-at-home mom to raise their children. She operated her own daycare for 10 years, then began a new career at Highgate Elementary School. Debbie retired in 2013 after 28 years of service at the Highgate Elementary School. CJ worked in construction and advanced his career at Agway and then Feed Commodities prior to retiring in 1999. He remains busy today, working part-time at O.C. McEwen's and Sons. Around town and in our community, Debbie and CJ have kept very busy volunteering with no signs of slowing down. Thank you for that. CJ has been active with the Missisquoi Amateur Hockey League, the Vermont Hockey Board, Highgate Little League, and the St. Louis Church. Within town government, he has served as a lister, justice of the peace, trustee of the trust funds, and on the Village Core Master Plan Committee. You also will find him lending a hand at town meeting or at the polls for elections. Aside from her many contributions at Highgate Elementary School, Debbie has always been ready and willing to prepare casseroles or desserts for families in our area or for various church dinners. She has worked at the Arena Snack Bar, organized food donations for those in need, and arranged the senior holiday meals at Highgate Elementary School. Debbie's also been a welcoming and smiling face working at the check-in table at elections. The Miller family has grown over the years to include a daughter-in-law, Jen, a son-in-law, Luke, and 3 grandchildren, Kyle, 20, Isaac, 19, and Olivia, 13. They enjoy spending time with their family, attending various sporting events, going on weekend trips, and growing their retirement fund by improving their probability awareness at area casinos. I want to thank you very much for your service. The job that all of our boards, all of our volunteers do, this is definitely a team effort in this community. We thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, with your permission, we would ask for our state representatives, both from Berkshire, I understand, Sharon Fagard and Lisa Hango, to be able to speak. Moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? You're up, ladies.
I drew the short straw, so I'm going first. Hi, my name is Sharon Fagard. I am honored and grateful to have the opportunity to serve our district of 4 towns, and I have a lot to share about what is in my committee. I am on the Ag and Forestry Committee, and I have learned a number of things that I never expected to, like for instance, they're growing meat in laboratories now from tissue samples of actual animals, and that we need to be aware that that's coming down the pike. But some of the bigger pieces that are really important to our agricultural economy are that we have a program called Farm to Plate, and it's 10 years old. We've reauthorized that from the committee, and it's going to be going, it's been voted out of the House floor into the Senate. And what this does is this program does a tremendous job of improving farmers' access to markets. They work at a grassroots level with over 350 partners in the state. They help independently owned grocers better market local food products. They published a step-by-step guide for anybody wanting a career in Vermont's food economy. They support a dairy grazing apprenticeship program through the UVM extension and provide a template for communities to develop local food security plans for town and regional planning. And they help increase the food gleaning from farms and markets so that instead of being wasted, that food is being delivered to people who need it. Using existing infrastructures. We voted Farm to School program. We reauthorized that, and that has made a difference in our children's health and ability to learn. And you know, a lot of times in some families, that's the best meal those kids are going to get all day is going to be at school. And children who are well fed do better. It also, when you buy from a local farmer, 60 cents of that dollar stays in the state instead of being automatically shipped out of the state. And that's essential if we want our small communities to continue to survive. Consumer protection was recently voted out of the House to the Senate, and this bill basically allows all those services and goods that you purchase, usually online, that have an automatic renewal. This is going to make it easier for you to not have it automatically renew if you don't want that. We've also passed out of the House a bill that would treat tobacco vaping the same way that nicotine vaping, which has really undermined our campaign for 20 years to reduce the amount of tobacco use by young people. We've lost our gains in a short period of time. And so we are working to catch up with technology so that these nicotine delivery systems will be treated the same way that we treat cigarettes and smokeless tobacco to help keep it out of the hands of young people. We have an opportunity that we are wanting to look at about providing recognition and funding to farms that are providing what they call eco-services. That is when farmers are protecting water quality, building topsoil, and helping mitigate flooding or drought and climate change with their practices, because while farmers do not want free money, they do deserve to be paid for the services they're providing, which sometimes extends beyond the products that they're selling. Let's see. There are some things coming down the road, like there's a sunset on on-farm slaughter authority this year, and the only bill I've introduced is one that would repeal that sunset so that we can keep that door open. There are some issues with the current regulations that make it really challenging if you want to have slaughter of your own animals that you're going to sell. And some of those challenges are you can't do it. Either the customer who has purchased the animal as a whole live thing has to do it all, or they can appoint an itinerant slaughterer, but you can't help in any way that you have to provide a space on your farm to do that. So there's some things that need to be addressed, but I don't think we can get that. But I can at least keep the door open, because that's an especially that has real potential, especially for some of the small farms in more other parts of the state where we have people raising livestock and they're selling directly to individuals. We need to work to keep the Salisbury Fish Hatchery open. They provide 20 to 25% of the fish that bring in tourist dollars and provide opportunities for local for locals to fish. There are water quality initiatives, and there's a lot. There's too much to keep track of, and unfortunately, I can't know everything that's happening in every committee. But I do have some reports with contact information in a stack over there. And if people would like to have real deep conversations, you can contact me directly if it's going to be something that's lengthy. But this, I'm a freshman, so I'm going to say, now what? What do I do now? I can.
Is there any questions?
Yeah. Any questions? If not, I will welcome Lisa Hango, who's only recently been appointed, to come up. Okay.
Thank you. We can.
Thank you.
You're going to put really close to it.
Okay, thanks. I have to have the microphone here because I talk with my hands. Can everybody hear me? No? Okay. How about that? Is that better? No? Okay. I'm Lisa Hango, and I'm very new to the legislature. I've only had 10 legislative days so far, but I'm very pleased to have been appointed to be your District Franklin 5 representative to the House. During my first 2 weeks in the legislature, I spent most of my time familiarizing myself with the hundreds of bills that are being circulated throughout the House this session and studying those that are residing in my committee, which right now we have 42 bills on the wall that we're working on. It's been an unusually busy session for bills, I'm told, this year. I've also tried to bring myself up to speed on the protocols and procedures that my fellow freshman legislators have had since orientation in December to learn. I'm still not there yet. I want to take this opportunity to thank Sharon, my district mate, and the rest of the Franklin County delegation for helping me to navigate my way and feel at home in Montpelier. Without them, this transition would not have been as easy as it is. Governor Scott has stated his goals for his second biennium as growing the economy, making Vermont a more affordable place to live, and protecting the most vulnerable of our population. In my committee, the General Housing and Military Affairs Committee, we currently, as I said, have 42 bills on the wall that have been introduced to us, ranging from bills having to do with alcohol licensing, affordable housing, landlord-tenant rights, protected tenants, recovery housing, which we used to know as sober housing, Native American affairs, the Adjutant General selection process, weatherization programs, and the Vermont Veterans Home. So as you can see, my committee deals with a number of different issues. We don't have one specific thing that we focus on. So we need to know a little bit about everything and not a lot about one particular program. So if there is something that you're interested in learning more about, you can contact me and I can put you in touch with the appropriate legislator who might know more about that with the bills that are in their committee. Prior to arriving at the State House, my committee passed one bill out relating to paid family leave. We have several others on the same subject that we will be hearing testimony on after the break. Some of them are voluntary, and one of them is the governor's proposal to work with New Hampshire to offer a partially paid, partial voluntary program, and the people who would participate without having to pay in would be state employees. On the House floor, we selected a new Adjutant General of the Vermont National Guard, Lieutenant Colonel Greg Knight, who I think will do a very good job. And the General Assembly also sent, as you know, H57 on to the Senate, where it sits in a committee waiting for them to discuss the ramifications of that bill. The Senate has also passed a bill raising the minimum wage over the next 5 years to $15 per hour. The House committees, after our break, will take that up and discuss it. Certainly on any of these issues, they have not yet become law. If you have an opinion, please feel free to contact any of us and we will make your voice known in Montpelier. I have a survey that we would be interested in people filling out. And with the permission of the town clerk, I could leave it here and they could collect it and we will come and pick it up at another point in time. Thank you. So it will be over here. And this survey deals with all kinds of issues that may be important to you and maybe not. But please feel free to put your comments at the bottom if you have any, and we will look at them. This survey was provided by another legislator who I have not met personally, but I think he did a good job in looking at the issues that are before us today and putting them in a good format for you to fill out. And it shouldn't take long. And it certainly will help us to know what's on your mind. Please feel free, as I said before, to contact any of your lawmakers with your questions and comments, but in particular, Sharon and myself. I'll leave some business cards here with my contact information. And the other thing that I would like from you, with your permission, is to send around a paper where you can sign up your name and email address and you can receive a newsletter from us about what we're doing on a weekly basis when we go back to Montpelier. If you have any questions, I'll take your questions, and if not, thank you very much for the opportunity to serve you.
What committee are you on? Lynn Calvin. All I want to know is what was the title of the committee? Because you talked about the committee and you kind of got the general gist of it.
Yeah, it's a long title. General, Housing, and Military Affairs. So basically any bill that comes through the House, we're going to see it in one shape or another in my committee, because general really does cover just about everything, and housing, obviously, and military affairs are self-explanatory. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how far along with that carbon tax bill?
It's currently not doing anything. The Speaker of the House has mentioned that it's too late in the session to take that up. So my gut reaction, and as I said, I've only been there 10 days, my gut reaction is that it may not go anywhere this legislative session this year.
You said about recovery. I noticed in Vermont, if you're a female, if you're released from jail, there is no rehabilitation drug center and alcohol centers to help people who get out. They either have to get help for the turn point. My honest truth, is there going to be more housing for people in recovery when they get out, especially if you're a female?
Great question. My committee heard several hours of testimony in the last couple of weeks from organizations that provide exactly that, housing for females who have substance use disorder, which is a new term for us. We used to call it substance abuse, but it's now called substance use disorder. And there's a very high demand for women in these programs to have a house of their own to go to. So that's one of the things my committee is taking up. We have several bills which I can discuss at length, probably at another time, that are pertaining to that very subject. And the short answer to your question is yes, they are working on it, and there are a number of very good organizations out there who want to push out from central Vermont and get up in this area as well. Any other questions?
There's a lot of bills that are coming out of the House. Is the Senate going to sit on them and not see any movement? One in particular, 839, with the Act 46 delay, merger delay.
Good question. H39 is in a Senate committee right now, and the latest word that I have on that is they will be taking it up next week when we come back from break. So that's a Senate committee. It has to pass out of the Senate committee and then go on to the full Senate and then go on to the governor. So it's quite a long process. So that's where H39 sits, and I do have it on a pretty good source that they are going to work on it. As for the other bills, this was an extraordinarily busy session so far with bill introduction. There have been a record number of bills introduced in both the Senate and the House, and I honestly can't say how any of them would all be considered. So the Speaker of the House puts a priority on what she would like to see discussed, and each committee chair also asks his or her own committee's opinion to see what they think is worthy of discussion. And when those bills are prioritized, we call in witnesses. So this can be a several-week process. Witnesses will come in and testify. Usually it's a room full at a time, so it's a very lengthy process that these bills are talked about. So as for how many are going to actually get the chance to become a real law, I couldn't even tell you, but I do know that the very important ones, or what the ones the Speaker of the House has deemed to be important, are going to be discussed and put to a vote. Thank you very much for your time, and I will pass around the email list and leave the survey for you.
Thank you very much. The legal qualified voters of the town of Highgate, Vermont are hereby warned and notified to meet at the Highgate Elementary School Gymnasium on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019 at 10 a.m. to transact the following business. Article 1, to elect from the legal voters of said town the following officers. 1 moderator for the ensuing year. Do we have a motion? Will do. Absolutely. Article 2, to act upon the reports of the school board directors. Article 3, shall the voters of Highgate School District approve the transfer of approximately 1/4 acre of land known as the NATO property for the sum of $1 to an independent board of trustees comprised of 3 Highgate community members, with the purchase being completed by June 30th, 2019. Article 4, to transact any other business legally authorized to be transacted, considered appropriate and necessary when met. Article 1, to elect from legal voters of said town the following officers, 1 moderator for the ensuing year. Do we have any motions?
Nominate Kyle. Second.
Are there any other nominations? All in favor of Kyle Lothian to be your moderator for the ensuing year, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Article 2, to act upon the reports of the school directors. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Discussion.
Yes, I was wondering with the new school bond that you're proposing here, and I know a lot of people didn't get a lot of information. We got some last night that perhaps other people didn't get. Could you discuss how that bond works in reference even if we consolidate or don't consolidate?
Yes, the bond we're going for over the last couple of years, we've noticed some problems with the buildings, i.e. the biggest thing was the roof. We had to do a lot of work on the roof. The parking lot is a constant issue. It's caused the board to really look a lot closer at how the buildings are. So we hired an engineering firm, Reggiano, to come in and do a building assessment on the building and the grounds. And they provided us a breakdown of what our building needs are. We went through and picked out any of the major ADA compliant issues, some building improvement issues, and then obviously the parking lot. We put together a proposal that we feel needs to be addressed. And then as far as the bond and consolidation part of it, as of right now, it's a Highgate just a Highgate town issue. We're voting as the town of Highgate on this bond. If it passes, the debt would be the responsibility of the Highgate town unless Act 46 merger happens. If the merger does happen, then the debt would be transferred to the new consolidated district.
Do we have any other questions?
I guess my question is, so all these other towns are probably going to do the same thing we are. So the Franklin, Swanton, so the debt load is going to be whatever town votes on today. If Act 46 goes through and we get pinched with this, we're going to accept this district is going to take the debt load of Franklin, Swanton, and Highgate together, correct?
Yes, we would share the debt load, but no one else is proposing a bond right now that is in this new consolidated district.
I just asked you, please state your name for your question, please.
Samantha Rush. So let's make it very clear that once we do consolidate, Franklin smart, Swanton smart, Highgate smart, nobody's going to take over the debt load. They're going to make an article and they're going to say, we don't want to incur other people's debt. So the bond that gets put through for $2 million, which legitimately there are things that need to be replaced, and I'm for it. But let's make it clear that Highgate, or Swanton and Franklin, they're not going to pay for our debt. It's going to be on the Highgate taxpayers.
As of right now, that is not entirely correct because we've put together articles of agreement where the towns would share the debt load. Everyone would put all the money in the consolidated district, including the debt, and it would all be centrally located. Yes. Well, it's a two-way street. We're sharing in the workload for them, but they're also helping us.
One thing that I learned last night at the information meeting, which did influence how I thought to vote on this, was that if we don't pass it this time, we don't have, and the consolidation happens, and correct me on this, that if the consolidation happens, we do not have a chance to do this again. And one thing that these guys mentioned was this is kind of like taking out a mortgage, that it's a 20-year bond. And I'm not for raising taxes, I'm like going, yeah, but it's a 20-year bond, and it's like a mortgage, we're paying a little at a time. If we merge, we don't get a chance to have these repairs, from what I say, really need to be done. Why is that?
Why wouldn't they be able to do it?
Because it would then be, it'd be up to the board.
If this bond fails and consolidation happens on schedule, it would no longer be a vote from just Highgate on the bond. It would then be a vote from Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton to do a bond at the Highgate School. And it would also be a decision made to put a bond forward. It would be the consolidated board that would present it.
And from what I understand is that other towns would then be voting on whether we get our school repaired. And if they decide they don't want to get it repaired, we don't get repaired, right?
Correct.
So this one here, like I said, I was like very much against spending that much money, but after going to the information meeting, I'm going, this might be a wise way to go because we get all our repairs without having their permission. Our own town decides what we want done to our own building. And it is a 20-year payoff. So it's, you guys said last night that if we don't get the bond, then we're gonna have to be every year bringing it out to say, okay, can we repair the roof this year? And the taxpayers go, because I've done the other one, okay? And it's gonna have to be piecemeal each time. So the information meeting was really helpful to me to see that, do we want to do this before we lose the right to choose what happens to our own school? If it doesn't merge, which would be really great, we still have the same thing, the same setup. We're still going to be paying for our school. These repairs need to be done. They were saying last night how they specifically cut out things that weren't necessary. Said, well, no, we don't need this, we don't need this, we don't need this. That's just, I'm just saying how the information changed my mind on this, to have a say for our own school before we're forced to have other towns decide what our school needs.
Please wait your turn. If you have a question, just please raise your hand.
I said it, I'm just making a comment on her.
That's fine. Microphone, please.
It's too late now, it's already on the ballot.
Henry, over here, please.
Henry Rainville. When I went to the school meeting about 10 days ago at MBU, one of the questions that was brought up was the scenario if we do something now on our own, that we are going to be on our own for that part of it. Is that, do we have that set in stone that is a true statement or not a true statement?
As of right now, we have an article of agreement that the debt load be transferred. That is an article as a committee that we did not delve into because the lawsuit is going to determine a lot about that. That's one of the major parts of the lawsuit, which Highgate is part of, against the state over Act 46. As of right now, the debt moves to the consolidated district no matter what, and we have been advised that that is a law. We don't have a choice in that. We can't change it.
How many quotes did you get for the roof and for the parking lot to come up with the number of the bond?
We didn't get any quotes. We used the engineering company's numbers. Due to the short timeline to prepare this for today, we didn't have a chance to chase 3 quotes on every aspect. through this though, we want to aim high because we can't go for more money later. So each one of the different items and projects that we have on the bond will have to go out for quotes. We have to submit 3 bids on everything, and obviously, you know, we're going to try to be financially responsible with it. If we don't have to spend the full amount, we don't want to.
Right, but if the companies know how much the bond is for, they're gonna be aware that how much money is available, and then I would think that the bids would come in higher than they normally would because they know how much money is there.
Chris, the nature of competition.
We feel that nature of competition will keep the bids down.
Do you have any other questions? So we ready to vote? No, John, ready to vote on it, sorry. Oh yeah, no, we're not, just on the, I'm talking about act upon the report, the school board director reports. We're not voting on that by no means. Ms. Bior. Do we have a second? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? She made the motion to accept the reports as written. Moving on. Article 3, shall the voters of Highgate School District, approve the transfer of approximately 1/4 acre of land known as the NATO property for the sum of $1 to an independent board of trustees comprised of 3 Highgate community members with the purchase being completed by June 30th, 2019. Got a motion? Do we have a second? Discussion.
Hi, Sonia. Who's going to decide who those 3 community members are, and who do they answer to once they've been appointed?
At this point, the board determined that we would appoint the 3 trustee members, and then once this board goes away, I would say the select board would be in charge.
The article says that the sum of $1 to an independent board of trustees. So who actually owns, do the 3 trustees own the property? Because as I read this, it doesn't say who we're giving the dollar to. I assume it's to the town.
Yes.
But that's not the way, that's not how I read it. And so therefore, this is just a suggestion. I think legally there would be value in amending this to say to the town of Highgate.
The way this is written, this would belong to the board of trustees. Not the town.
Did that answer your question?
I'm sorry.
They said it belongs to the board of trustees.
Would they be taxed on it?
Yes.
If it belongs to the Board of Trustees, then they therefore responsible for taking out insurance on that piece of property, so that if something were to happen, it would be not the liability, it would be their liability?
I don't have that answer at this time. I'm not sure.
Just a minute, please. Sharon?
Shelley, I'd ask the question, if 3 people in town owned a piece of property, they would be taxed on that property, correct?
And thus it's their property and they would be liable.
Yes.
So I'd like to amend this article. And I would like to amend it to read, shall the voters of the Highgate School District approve the transfer of approximately 1/4 acre of land to the town of Highgate, and then the rest of that.
Yes, but
is the intent that this Board of Trustees' action duties would be to oversee the disposition of the property, manage it, so on and so forth? Or is it the intent that 3 individuals are going to be granted 1/4 of an acre of what currently is public property?
The intent was to oversee, not to be granted the property.
Mr. Moderator, you have a motion on the floor.
thank you. We have a second to amend the article to read, hopefully I got this right, shall the voters of the Highgate School District approve the transfer of approximately 1/4 acre of land to the town of Highgate, known as a NATO property, for the sum of $1, to an independent board of trustees comprised of 3 Highgate community members, with the purchase being completed by June 30th, 2019. Is that proper?
I believe it has to state known as the NATO property.
I'm sorry, I thought I said that. Yes, right here.
So just talking with Connie, it would be 1/4 acre of land to the town of Highgate, known as the NATO property, for the sum of $1 to be overseen by an independent group, an independent board of trustees.
To be overseen. Okay, so we had a motion on the floor. I did not see a second on that motion. Was there on the whatever? Yes. So we have to vote on that first one that I just read, and then if you want it to be read as you just said it, we have to vote this no, because I have to reread it with the overseen and so forth in it. Mr. Rainville.
Can we ask the people that made the original motion to amend that motion to the right motion?
Thank you.
Yes.
So that's been done. So, Article 3. Shall the voters of Highgate School District approve the transfer of property of approximately 1/4 acre of land to the town of Highgate, known as a NATO property, for the sum of $1 to be overseen by a board of trustees comprised of 3 Highgate community members, with the purchase being completed by June 30th, 2019. We got a motion? So moved. Second?
Just to approve the amendment.
This is just to approve the amendment. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Now we're good.
So mine is kind of a 2-part question. One would be, why do we need the independent board of trustees? Why can't we just donate it to or sell it to the town of Highgate for $1 and let the select board manage it like they do all of the town property? And the second part of the question is, why are we not considering the Cassidy property in this? Because it was brought to my attention by a current Swanton School Board member that the property was purchased for $20,000 in 2000, has a current value of $168,800 for 20 acres. And the first thing that the Consolidated School Board is going to do is sell it for profit.
Well, the first one, the Cassidy property, we've already put a memorandum in place that the property has to be used as it is now. It's signed by board members, board chair for Highgate, board chair for MVU, and then Richard and Kim Flint provide water to the property, so they signed it. And we also included the Cassidy family because they're the ones that sold it to the school and in the intent for it to be used for children. So that memorandum, whether we consolidate or not, has to stay in place. That's an in-place legal document.
Is that recorded in town documents?
Yes. And in order to amend it later, say the new consolidated board want to do something different, they need all, in this case, it'd be all three parties to agree. And as far as the Board of Trustees, because the NATO land was gifted to the school, we felt it was more appropriate to put it in front of a Board of Trustees and rather than just handing it over to the select board.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you kind of do a quick synopsis of what is the purpose of this land transfer, why it's happening, and where exactly the land is?
The NATO land is the section of maple trees between M&R's gun shop and the vet and the Macy property. It's in that little area. The reason we decided to do this now is because of Act 46. Once this if Act 46 carries out as scheduled, we would then have to have the consolidated board vote on this because all the assets would transfer to the consolidated district. We wanted to keep this in the town of Highgate.
Any other questions? We're ready to vote. Article 3, shall the voters of Highgate School District approve the transfer of approximately 1/4 acre of land to the town of Highgate, known as the NATO property, for the sum of $1 to be overseen by an independent board of trustees comprised of 3 Highgate community members, with the purchase being completed by June 30th, 2019. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Article 4, to transact any other business legally authorized to be transacted, considered appropriate and necessary when met. You got any questions for your board? Mr. Rainville.
Henry Rainville. Another article later on is going to be a question of starting town meeting at 9 o'clock instead of 10. My question is, if this consolidation does happen, what happens to our portion of the school meeting on town meeting day?
That's a good question. The organizational meeting will determine a lot of that. The organizational meeting that was postponed is now rescheduled for March 21st. At that meeting, we would determine how future budgets would be voted on, if they're going to be a floor meeting or an Australian ballot. Either way, we would not be doing a school budget at this meeting. At this meeting would probably be just an informational meeting.
Any other questions?
So I guess my question is, if that were to happen, I guess I'll leave this for another moment.
You have any other questions? Mr. Yates.
So your terms, some of them end today. Is there something that we need to do today to extend these terms for the ones that expire today to continue our Highgate School Board until such time as the merger?
None of our terms end today. Because the board goes away as of right now in June, or at the end of June, the very next meeting we have, the remaining board can appoint the terms that end today, just to run out the 3 months that's left, or 4 months that's left. If in the event that we get a delay, we will have a meeting where these terms will be voted on.
Any other questions? I'll take a motion to adjourn the school board meeting. So moved. Second, Mr. Ringville. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The legal voters of the town of Highgate, Vermont are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Highgate Elementary School in the town of Highgate on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, between the hours of 7 o'clock in the forenoon, 7 a.m., at which time the polls will open, and 7 o'clock in the evening, 7 p.m., at which time the polls will close, to vote by Australian ballot upon the following articles of business. Article 1, to elect the following town officers. Do you want me to read through these as well and then go back to the top, or are we going to go one by one? Number 1, a moderator for the ensuing year.
Second. These are Australian ballots. Make a motion to approve Article 1.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving Article 1, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Article 2, one town clerk for a term of 3 years.
We did the whole article.
Oh, we did the whole article. Okay, my apologies. I'm sorry. The legal qualified voters of the town of Highgate, Vermont are hereby warned and notified to meet at the Highgate Elementary School Gymnasium on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019 at 10 a.m. to transact the following business. Article 2, to receive and act upon reports of the town officers for the past year. We have a second? Discussion. We have any questions on your town officer reports? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Article 3, shall the voters of the town of Highgate set the final date of payment for FY 2019-2020 property taxes to be Friday, November 1st, 2019, with payments to be received in town office by 4:30 p.m. You have a motion, you have a second? Discussion?
I just have a question. Are you allowed, Shelley, to pay your taxes prior to that date? So, not that I want to, but if I wanted to, I can pay it in installments or pay it quarterly anytime I want to? Absolutely. Okay.
Shelley can take money with both hands anytime you want to give her
She
something.
will take my money regardless, is what you're saying. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to, I'm Alice Cora, and I would like to thank Shelley for working with the town residents, setting up payment plans. I would like to thank her very much. Our taxes have gone down a lot because of her help.
Thank you.
I'm very graceful. For the first time in a long time, it is under 100,000. We're at 98,300 as of yesterday. So thank you all for making your own payment plans and staying on your budgets, because without you, it wouldn't happen.
Do we have any other questions? Ready to vote? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Article 4. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $7,424 for home health services provided by Franklin County Home Health Agency Incorporated? We have a motion. We have a second. Discussion.
Is there a representative here from Home Health
We do have a representative in the back row.
that would like to make a motion to speak here?
Are you from Highgate, ma'am? Make a motion. All in favor of allowing her to speak, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Please give her the microphone.
My name is Courtney Bates. I'm the Community Relations Coordinator for Franklin County Home Health. I first want to say thank you so much for all of your support in the past. We really appreciate it. So in 2018, our agency made 2,546 visits to 81 residents in Highgate. This $7,423 is the same amount that we have requested in 2017 and 2018.
Mr. Carroll.
What is the money used for? Just for a home visit?
It's used to provide home care to the residents.
Yeah, but does Medicare or any other insurance cover their costs?
Yep, so our funding comes from Medicare,
Fundraising and then town allocations. And so what we do with the town funding is covers the cost of uncompensated care from Medicare.
You show where this money was used, I mean, by item lines?
Yep, we have item lines for the number of visits we've done for each discipline of our care.
But the actual $7,400, you know where it went?
I don't have that information with me today, but I could definitely get it to you.
So I would think you'd have to report that to somebody.
Yeah, we do.
If you use it all traditionally, we don't need that much next year. I said if you didn't use it all, then I would think it would roll over.
Right, we do use it all.
Thank you.
I say the home health do a great job. When my grandfather was losing his memory and everything else, I was living in my own slot school apartments and I used to bring meals. It felt good to have them there checking up on my grandfather and my grandmother. We were both getting along in age. And I think the money is worth it to have this through the insurance. There's a lot of people who are senior citizens, who are diabetics, who need that kind of guidance and stuff, or a seizure disorder. I can't say more than nothing great about home health, and I think it's a good program, and I feel like it should continue.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Seeing none, ready to vote? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? You guys have it. Article 5, shall the voters of the town of Highgate amend the start time for town meeting beginning in March 2020 to 9 a.m. Do we have a motion? So moved. Do we have a second? Mr. Ringo, discussion. Mr. Ringo.
I'd like to postpone this article until next year so we know more about Act 46 and stuff.
So that was a motion, sir? The motion has been made and seconded to postpone this article until next year, until we find out what's going on with the Act 46. Mr. Yates.
I think this makes complete sense to do this no matter which way Act 46 goes, because maybe we could get through a school budget meeting before lunch if we started at 9. If we push it, if we keep it at 10 and we have a school board meeting that we have to go through, we're going to be pushing lunch back again like we have every other year. So I think this makes sense to stay at 9 o'clock as written.
I'd like to know, how does this affect the farmers? Because I think that's one of the reasons that we started at 10. And I do know that most of the people who are able to come to this are farmers or self-employed. So can someone conversate how this affects their ability to get here on time?
Anybody want to speak to that?
Not only though did it affect the farmers, but you gotta remember, we live in Vermont, and not all days have sunshine, and that's part of the reason it was 10 o'clock too. Our town crew does a great job getting the roads done, but they don't shovel elderly people's driveways so they can get out and get here.
Any other comments? Obviously, you don't have to do this, but the question's been asked, do we have farmers here today? Are there any farmers here that would like to speak to this? You're right in the back row. Would you like to speak to it? No? It's okay. You don't have to. Just asking. All right, so the motion's been made and seconded to amend this to wait till next year. So we're voting on that, the amendment right now. All right, we all on the same page here? To table it, excuse me, table it. Yes means, go ahead.
I think he said postpone it, not table it. There's a difference that requires more voting.
You said postpone.
One or the other.
Excuse me, the motion was made to postpone this article until next year. So if you vote yes, that means you want to postpone it until next year. If you vote no, it means you don't. We all on the same page again? I know I am now. Fine, thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Boy, it sure sounds like the no's had it to me. One more time. Yeah, hands please. All in favor, raise your hand.
Yes.
Okay, opposed? So it sounds like the no's were just louder. It was 54 in favor of the motion and 40 against. So we're postponed until next year. Article 6, shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $450,000 to meet the expenses and liabilities of capital improvement plan with an estimated $450,000 to be raised by taxes. You have a motion. Second? Discussion. Coming to you.
Yes, I'd like to hear from the select board, each of them individually, on what they think that can be added or subtracted from the CIP and what's critical and not critical. Because it's a large CIP at $450,000. And since you guys put it together with the Planning Commission, you have the best knowledge of what you really need and what you really don't need.
Okay, so yes, we have asked for more money this year. That is true. The bulk of that is for our highway department. And I have asked the highway or public works director to join us today, and he is in the back. We can go line by line. Page 43. Yes. So you are looking at the right side of the page, FY 2020. That column is the money that's being asked for today. The first figure in that column will be $10,000. Everybody with me? Okay. So we're asking for $10,000, our municipal ADA grant. We had to do additional testing for phase 1 and phase 2 of that project because there were metals found in the water supply and there were metals found around our wastewater. Some of that was thought to come from the cemetery, but it has since been noted that that does not serve as a public health risk, and we are now granted the permission to go forward with that ADA project. But in doing that, that had cost us a little bit extra money. So we had asked for $10,000 for that. The second figure we're asking for is for Parks and Rec. We're asking for $20,000 to join the $10,000 that we agreed upon last year to give to the Parks and Recs for an addition of a storage building. That storage building would replace the building that is currently on the property that is falling down. They're looking to have storage for their new tractor, their indoor turf, and to have space for the Highgate Little League, to have their equipment as well, and some for Maha's equipment. The second article for Parks and Rec would be $2,500 for Zamboni maintenance. That's just in lieu, or it's a start to a fund to try to save money to go towards a new Zamboni. So Parks and Rec is asking for $22,500. The library has not asked for money on the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan. The Highgate Volunteer Fire Department are asking for $50,000 to put toward the purchase of their new fire engine. We have been assured by Rural Development that should they encounter the money, we are granted $50,000 from them on a grant. We have already met our match for that. So with $50,000 with this CIP and $50,000 from Rural Development Grant, we would be short $16,000 toward the purchase of a new truck this year. I have been assured by Shelley that we could find $16,000 in our current budget to be able to make that purchase happen this year. So the fire department's asking for $50,000. The Public Works Department, they are asking for $5,000 toward the road mower, and that's the tractor, not the mower. They're asking for $50,000 for the 1991 grader. So this is money asked for the eventual purchase of a new vehicle. Yeah, in 2024. They are asking for $5,000 towards the new purchase of a loader. We currently have a 2001 loader. They're asking for $25,000 for the 76 International tandem truck. So that purchase would be in 2024. We are asking for $100,000. Yeah, have to give me a little line here. Sorry, yes, it's I'm a little backwards here. So the $25,000 was actually for the John Deere backhoe. So that's for the purchase of another backhoe with a purchase year of 2024. So the 2010 International tandem truck, that's where we're asking for the $100,000. The new purchase would be in 2020. The reason that figure is so high is because up until now there's been a constant putting off of the highway expenses, and we've delayed putting money aside for that because we've had other large projects that have had to go forward and had required that money. So in an attempt to try to catch up to where we need to be on schedule, that's why that figure is $100,000. The 2014 Western Star, which has a new date, 2024, we're putting $25,000 toward. The 2015 Ford 550, we're asking for nothing. The 2016 International Single Axle Truck, we're asking for $5,000 toward its new purchase in 2026. So with a total of $215,000 asked for the Public Works. If we have any questions about Public Works, as I said, we have asked Butch Brousseau to come today, so he is available for questions as to what he thinks our schedule would look like. And yes, he's shaking his head like he doesn't want to answer any questions, but he will. He's good about that. So I'll finish this and we can go back. We are not asking for any money for the B25 bridge because this year that will be complete and our portion of that funding has already been covered. Estimated completion depends on the weather. Yeah. Transfer station, we have not asked for any money. We are in, the phase 1 is complete. The phase 2, we are asking for $50,000. That is just a project in motion. We have already had a grant of $900,000. We have $52 set aside already. Macy Road slide, we are asking for an additional $50,000 to add to our already $183,500. The reason we're asking for that is because that has become a larger project than expected. We had expected the cost to be $915,000, but we have been working all year with our engineers, and unfortunately between the engineers and the state, our original concept of fixing it will not work. It has become a lot larger project. The erosion is a lot deeper and more complex than we thought. At this point, we are talking about concrete nailing underneath that road, which becomes a large expense and it's much more complicated than we had ever expected. So we are asking for a little bit more money to help cushion the burden that's going to be from that project. The Macy Road Property Development are asking for $20,000 to continue their work on that property. That will include helping to clean up the remainder of that property. The phase 1 and 2 testing is already done, so we'll have minimal work there, but we will have some abatement, and this will help with the new funding. We are also asking for $32,500 to go for stormwater grant match. And stormwater grant match is important because the state now for all of our highway funding has required much more stormwater projects. And we'll need that matching money in order to apply for grants to be able to meet our obligations to the state. And as long as we meet our obligations to the state, then they'll allow us to apply for more grants. So in and around town, we're asking for $152,500. So we are asking for a total of $450,000. I'm going to turn it over to the other board members because we were asked to speak individually. That gives you an overview of our board to answer any questions.
I just want to make sure people keep in mind when we're actually purchasing the vehicles. It seems like a lot of money up front, but if you look at the purchase dates, it pushes it out quite a ways, and I know there's some controversy on the grader. It's a 1991. We'll be purchasing that in 2024, so that's a lot more hours on that vehicle, and by then she's going to be pretty tired and it's going to need a replacement. And that's the same with a lot of this equipment. So I just want to make sure people keep that in mind.
Josh, sort of covered my main point, which was to look at the time frame that we're proposing to purchase these pieces of equipment. It's a program that's been laid out based on the condition of how the equipment we've got currently and what its lifespan is expected to be, and so on and so forth. So the dollar amounts were what the Planning Commission came up with to make that all work so that we could replace these pieces of equipment in a timely manner before they started to become much more expensive to maintain.
Comment as well. In the past, I know Richard Noel has commented many times on the town for our highway department, and we should be constantly putting money in a little bit because things are getting old, and in the past they've had plans and they've worked, and it's kind of gone away. So it looks like now we're trying to function to make it better down the road, and without that, and a lot of this, you know, if you take one truck down, look what you got in the middle of a blizzard. There's a lot of factors in it, so it really has to be addressed. And the way to address it is a little every year, and it happens to be a little more every year now because it hadn't been addressed. Just to give you that idea.
Yeah, I just echo my select person's. I think this is a planned approach. There's really no fluff added here. We don't want to kick the can down the road. If there's one thing I think could use extra money, I think the Macy property, but we're asking quite a bit, so we wanted to kind of keep it under control.
Come back to you. Just a minute, Ms. Sparrow. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, as a Highgate person, I've lived on the same road all my life, and the Durkee Road, and I just wonder how come the Durkee Road can't get paved. I mean, we eat dust every day. All the other roads practically are paved. It's a short stretch, and the words to me were, well, you'll never see that paved. I don't know why. We pay taxes up there. We have kids. We used to try to ride our bikes up there. You know, give me a good reason why we don't pave that road.
Pave it.
It's only doing 1 mile every year.
They haven't touched any of it.
We have more people living on it now.
Yeah, I mean.
Hello? Yes, the paving budget is not in the capital improvement plan budget. So that's another line item in our budgeting process. And I would not preclude that the Durkee Road cannot get paved. I think it's something we'd all consider. And as part of a road planning process.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely should be done, because once a vehicle goes by, you can't see the other side of the road for about 10 minutes because it's so dusty and everything else. You guys would save some money. You wouldn't have guys up there with graders, you know, 2-3 times in the summer and stuff like that. And it would be much better and a safer road to travel. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Questions? Just a second, please. Thank you.
I thought there was a discussion a while back, and it was the one that owned the dump. He's the one that made a suggestion that we do 1 mile a year until this is done.
Just a second, please. We got a point of order. This is on the CAP. These questions are really for the next article.
Okay.
If you would, please. Thank you. Mr. Yates.
So
So I just want to give a shout out to the fire department for the wonderful work that they do for our town, and you know, the fiscal restraint that they've shown on purchasing this next truck. This truck is a no-frills truck. I've looked at the specs of it. It's basically replacing the truck for just a new model year. They're not adding anything to the new truck. But I want to fully fund this truck outside of any grant money, out of taking money from another line item in the budget. I think we owe it to them to put $116,000 instead of $50,000 in, because there's a 7% increase if we wait another year to purchase this truck. Just in tariffs and material costs alone are going up. The truck builder has said it's averaging about 7% more every year. And the wait time to get a truck built is about 370 days. So if we vote this through today and fully fund the truck, we possibly could have a truck next year at this time. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the CIP from $450,000 up to $516,000, which would change the $50,000 number to $116,000, fully funding the fire truck.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second? Second. Discussion. No, Phil, this is your time. This is discussion.
I wanted that before that, Kyle, on this, before this fire truck. I had a question on the dump trucks. Okay, my name's Phil. Did we crash a dump truck? Are we down one dump truck right now because of somebody put one on its side?
No, we are not. That truck was out of service for 7 days. It's in service now. It did roll over. The damage was minimal. And it was no fault of the highway department. They were running full chains front and back. But when you begin to slide sideways, you hang on and pray to God you make it through. And he did very well.
I just want to say the driver is okay as well.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor, folks. The motion on the floor is to amend the amount of tax dollars to be raised from $450,000 to $516,000. I'll read it.
We still have discussion on that.
Sorry, thank you.
Just a question on those. I think getting a new fire engine is great, and I think the town crew is doing a wonderful job. It has been a rough winter. I appreciate all the work they've done. Just wondering, if we're going to change that to the fire truck, can we take it away from anything else? So we're not really raising the budget, but just reappropriate. Also, the question on the Macy Road slide, it said that we last year approved $183,500. And they're asking for $50,000 this time, but yet over on the side, the total cost to town is set at $183,500, which is what we already have appropriated. So I guess that's two questions, actually.
So to answer your second question, our costs have changed due to our engineer. Because that wasn't what they call a tow fix, like we did the last time, that actually has changed the town's cost and the cost of the project. To what extent, we don't know yet. We are still trying to get help from the state and their engineers as well to see if the fix that's proposed by our engineers will even work. So we're in a little bit of a pickle there. And then to answer your first question, I think there is some room to move personally. But I would, before I suggested that move, I would want to talk to my selectmen.
Over here, we got a question. Thank you.
Do we need to raise that by that much? I understood that if we had the $50,000, that there was a $50,000 match and we were only going to be short $16,000. So do we need to have that at 116 or at 66,000?
I think Mr. Yates was making that motion so that for any reason, if we did not receive the funds this year, that they could still continue to purchase this year.
The grant's not a done deal. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Lisa Wells. I too want to say thank you to everybody who gets out there in all sorts of weather and mud and whatever else to keep us safe. My question on the CIP is a rough ballpark of the effect on our taxes, as in what we might see in an increase. And I'm asking because of Mr. Yates suggesting that we raise an amount within that budget or within that line item. So I'm just curious if we happen to know how much our taxes might go up just because of the CIP.
Hi Lisa, thanks for asking. I also put it in my write-up this year so everyone would have this idea. If everything passes as is, the average home assessment in Highgate is around $200,000. That tax bill would go up $72.31 on the municipal side. That's on the current grand list. We do know our grand list is growing every year. So I'm pretty well positive that number would actually go down with the April 1st grand list download. You want to know the new one with I don't know if I can go that far.
Be careful.
So on the same 200,000 assessment, just an average, 105. You're welcome.
Got a question right here.
On this fire truck, is this a nice to have or need to have to raise it 65,000 or whatever Mr. Yates has suggested? Do we really need a new truck this year or can it wait another year?
Chief DePatie, can you please tell us a little bit more about NFPA?
Okay, with the NFPA, it states that our fire trucks are supposed to be replaced every 20 years, regardless miles, regardless wear and tear. It's only to be able to make sure that that piece of equipment is and going to operate when it's needed. Last thing we want to do is have a piece of equipment on a fire scene when we drive up and is not working. Our current one right now is 32 years old. It's also going to affect your ISO rating, which is your insurance, fire insurance rating. The older our trucks are, the higher your rates are going to go up. So the more we can keep our trucks within NFPA standards, which is 20 years, we get a better rating for your fire insurance. So either way, we can keep the truck going. Currently, it's working fine. We put some money into the pump as is, but once again, it's we had our rating this year. We've got it passed this year, barely. So I don't know what's going to happen next year. So you may look at a rate increase on your fire insurance next year, because that was one of their questions when we were looking at a new truck. And my answer to them was we're hoping for next year. So you can leave it at that. So.
Any other questions from the chief?
Question, you said you had a rating. Was that an ISO rating or your truck rating?
Yeah, ISO rating.
So you had ISO come in. Have you had your truck rated? And inspected and tested, and what did that test at?
It tests at full capacity.
Full capacity, all right, thank you.
Question up here.
I would hate to see, as a taxpayer in Highgate, I know it's a big amount of money, but I know what they did for me a year ago, and they were there. I would hate to see somebody have a fire and have their truck die on them. That's an awful, awful thing. I know as a taxpayer, I know I'm a taxpayer myself, but we need the truck, and we need to get it before something tragic happens. That's all I gotta say.
So going forward, if this amendment is passed, it doesn't mean that we don't go forward on applying for that grant. It just means we'll be reimbursed if we accept that grant and not actually use the full amount of that CIP. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You have a question, Chair?
Yes. The select board and I should just noticed we did a little shuffle here. So we're proposing an amendment to the CIP.
Yeah, we've got them on the floor now that
If you want to tell us where you want to cut, then we can vote on the amendment.
Yeah, so we are suggesting that you remove $10,000 from the ADA modification and that you remove $50,000 from the 1991 grader and place that $60,000 into the fire department truck.
Just one second, Henry. We got a question right here.
Yeah, my question is, kind of to add to his, is the money going to be reimbursed if we do get the grant for the fire truck, or is it going to be held off, or can it be held off until next year, so when you guys are coming up and saying, okay, we want this money for this department, we can look at, say, the $65,000 surplus and be like, okay, we'll issue that, and then we can add in a little bit more, make it a little bit less of a burden to come up and ask for money next year.
Any extra capital funds will have to be reallocated the following year. By vote.
Henry?
So my question is, if we purchase, let's say this article passes, we go out and purchase a truck tomorrow. In my opinion, most grants that you would apply for, you can't go backwards on. So it would mean that, let's say we do get the grant, or we probably wouldn't be available to ask for the grant if we've already purchased it.
The grant's already been applied for. 2 grants were actually applied for this fire truck. Rural development has been our best option because there is money available and a less pool of applicants in our case. We have been assured that should they receive funds, which currently due to governmental issues, it's been on hold. We've been told that should they receive funds, that we have an excellent chance of getting this $50,000.
But my question is, if you've already bought it, you're not going to get the rebate afterwards.
Correct.
So just if I go buy a truck today, and there's a rebate that comes out tomorrow, up my back. And what I'm saying is, if we purchase this tomorrow, and we do get that grant, I would want to make sure that that grant would be able to go backwards for us.
That money will be spent for another year, though.
Kyle asked if the money could be spent another year, and no, we would have to deny the grant.
No, I'm sorry. My question is, if you chose to do this today, the purchase wouldn't actually happen for a year from now.
Right.
The order would be put in, but it's going to be at least 370 days for delivery. So if you were applied for that grant and received it, technically you haven't paid for anything yet. So I'm not telling you from authorization or knowledge, but to me you haven't paid for anything yet, so you'd still I would think would be liable to be able to still receive the grant.
My question is just make sure the wording does not make us unavailable.
We have a question right here.
I think, I don't know, maybe Heidi would know better, but sometimes when you obligate funds towards something, the grant people consider that a purchase, like Henry was saying, and they may not give you the money back. So I think if she's here and she's able to speak to it, since she's our grant writer, perhaps she would know best. Although she has to have permission to speak, I think.
Yes. Can I just interrupt there while we're waiting for Heidi? Could we possibly reallocate and the 60,000, leave it as it is, add 16,000 to the fire department, and just say that we're waiting on the grant, and that money, the 60,000 that the board is willing to reallocate, go towards the fire department if the grant doesn't go through?
So I would ask permission for Heidi Bridge-Valenta to speak at this meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Heidi, could you please review the rural development grant that's in process?
Well, we did apply in October, and it was delayed a fair amount because of the government shutdown, but we have been in contact. We had a scheduled site visit that actually fell through. They're prepared to come to Highgate and look around, but they've been here before for a previous grant, and we are in line for funding. So the chances are very good that we will be given $50,000 towards the purchase of the truck. So one of the criteria of that grant is that you do have to show that you don't have the money. So you may be putting yourself in a bad spot if you do allocate that money ahead of time. So there would be a risk. One of the documents that I have to prepare currently is a demonstration of the need. And Highgate does have a really good case because we have so many other expenses outside of normal operating expenses, such as your transfer station slide, your Macy Road slide, all of those big issues that other towns aren't really wrestling with. So you're in a great spot to get this funding, but you would still be that $16,000 short, so you would want to allocate that for sure, but maybe as someone else mentioned, there'd be a trigger so that that money only was allocated if the grant fell short. Make sense?
Makes total sense. You apply for the grant, you already approved the money, you're not going to get the grant.
I think that's correct.
We have questions in the center, please.
Hi, Cliff Poirier. I'm just wondering, there's been a lot of talk of replacing all these vehicles. What happens to the vehicles that are replaced? Are they sold? Are they given away? What's, you know, there's got to be some money coming back to the town if they're just being replaced.
Yeah, they'll be sold or traded.
Do you have any questions over here? Mr. Barrow, do you have a question? Yes, sir. Right next to you, please.
Yeah, you said the trade-in, that you would trade that old truck in for the new one?
Sometimes the values make sense.
But that's not included in the price of what you would get for the old truck.
No, sir. May I speak on this? In my experience, being on the Franklin Fire Department for over 30 years, and I've joined Highgate 2 years ago now, the value of these trucks is little to nothing. The problem is it's not the mileage, it's the year. They're so old that if you got $5,000, I would be shocked, you know. And that, just in my experience, that's what I've seen. You won't see a lot of return from a trade-in fire truck or selling it outright.
What do they do with them? Put them in the dump?
Well, in Franklin's case, it was actually one truck that was turned into a sap hauler for a local sugar maker. But in a lot of them, they quite simply, they may just put them on a boat and send them across to a third world country. I know they do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Machines up front.
I can just tell you right now, Danny Dezorsi from E1 advised us, because we asked him what the trade-in value of that truck would be. He said if you found somebody that really wanted the truck, you'd probably get about $5,000 for it. Biggest reason, the fire truck is a standard, and there's no fire department anymore that's really looking for standards. They're all going automatics.
So my comment was going to be that last year we were in line for a grant. We thought we were going to get a grant to purchase this truck, and it fell through. So this grant, can we change the grant to go towards our next fire truck purchase? And this is kind of a question to the fire chief: is what's the next oldest vehicle in age? When are we going to need to replace that?
Fire Chief Joe, did you hear that question? No. Fire Chief Joe. Yo, Joe. The question was asked, if they didn't get the grant for this truck, if we possibly could take the grant and put it towards the next oldest replacement truck, what would that truck be?
That would be our tanker, freight line tanker.
Thank you.
I can't tell you that. Is it a 98? Yeah. Okay. Past 20 years. So it's a 98. So 20 already. We had a new tank put on it 5 years ago. Yeah, 5, 6 years ago. So the chassis is older than what the tank is.
I'm seeing a lady shaking her head vigorously no back there. I'm assuming that you're not going to be able to transfer anything. So, can we get her mic, please?
That's what I was going to ask, yes. Heidi, if you could tell us that.
Can we change the grant? No.
In a prime spot right now to get that funding, because you are on the verge of pulling the trigger on the purchase. You can get the money and put it in your CIP to use at a later date. So what you're proposing means you would have to be willing to purchase a second truck to use it on that second truck. It's a use it within a 12-month period of time, and you have to have your proportion, and that is we're only allowed to have like 15% of the full amount because there's a lot of logistics involved. The short answer is no, that's not a possibility with that grant.
Mr. Greenville.
So for me, I'd rather keep the CIP as it was and push cut to shove. In my opinion, the select board would be in their authority to come up with the $16,000 to finish the deal if this needs to happen.
Thank you. We have some questions over here. Mr. Perro. Yeah, we're still in discussion. Yeah.
Mark Bassett. I'd like to talk a little about the grader. It's our trucks, I understand, the fire trucks are emergency vehicles. The grader, not so much. It breaks down, nobody's gonna get hurt. $285,000, a lot of money. Has the select board looked into some used graders?
Now I know.
Just a minute, please. Okay, we'll just get this question answered, and then you can ask your question.
It's going to be bought next year anyway, so we might as well leave it as it is.
We have an answer from Mr.
That way we're sure to get the grant.
So to answer your question, some of these figures are for used equipment. We haven't done exact because we're just beginning this budgeting process on a lot of these equipments, but we're giving what it would cost at this time. Yeah, we'd absolutely entertain used equipment. It's no different than buying a used car. If it were in the proper condition, would be no reason not to.
Because I personally would rather see half of that money go to gravel so that we have something to grade. Just my thoughts.
Got a question right here.
How many dirt road miles do we have left in Highgate? Not many. Right? But I mean, there's few spots.
Can that question, can we hold that question till the next article, please? That's actually for the highway fund. We will get into it, I promise. You can ask it, I promise. You know the Dickey Road's about 3, right? Question over here. Mr. Noel.
Okay, now the grader is put off till 2024 anyway, so the discussion isn't great right now, great with the grader. But the grader we presently have is a lease return, so that is very doable when it comes time. It looks at a good used machine with the amount of hours and the amount of rolls that you use on. And the other thing too about the increase in your CIP on this equipment is that you've been shorting it for 5 years. When I was on the board, we had a Casella, the fees from Casella was put aside back 5-6 years ago and put it into the general fund. But we used to keep it aside for equipment. And yet, at the point when we needed a piece of equipment, we were trying to run a 9-year cycle, replacing the truck every 3 years, but it'd be 9 years old. For the fact that at that point, yes, there's still some good usable miles, it's still in decent shape, and you get a good trade-in. We have experience in this town, and I can give you references to talk to somebody that experienced it in another town. They waited 1 year, they lost $25,000. So whatever you think, you say 10,000, 15, ask what the trade would be the following year. If you're going to lose 20, if they're going to drop to 25, 30,000, that means a cent. And these pieces of equipment, unfortunately, run in rough conditions. The salt has deteriorated a lot of the steel. The salt has made some of the computer systems screw up. There were 3 trucks down in less than 2 weeks in Franklin, Highgate, because of computer problems. So there's other issues today as opposed to old trucks where you could run them until they fell apart, because all they had was an engine, transmission, and a rear end and frame. Today they have a lot more. And these vehicles are not just plow vehicles, they're also your emergency vehicles. If they don't have that road plowed out, the fire truck isn't going to get there. Bottom line. So we'll put a plow on the truck after.
Mr. Shai, you have a question?
Mr. Moderator, move the question on Mr. Yates's amendment, and then we can continue the discussion on CIP.
We have a second on them. All in favor of moving the question? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, so we're back to the amendment. We have an amendment on the floor and seconded. The amendment is to change the amount. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $516,000 to meet the expenses and liabilities of capital improvement plan with an estimated $516,000 to be raised by taxes.
So if we vote this in, we lose the grant.
If you vote this in, you have a very good chance of losing the grant. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The noes have it. We're back to the original article. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $450,000 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the capital improvement plan with an estimated $450,000 to be raised by taxes? We have a motion. We have a second. We have more discussion. Back wall, please. Yeah.
I make the motion that we add in $50,000 for the library relocation, and if it is okay with the select board to take their deductions that they had put forward for the reallocation for the fire truck, so that it would put it at a net even number.
Is that a motion? Yeah, could you please clarify that? Clarify that for us. State that in the motion for me, please.
Make the motion that we put $50,000 in the line item for the library reallocation, and if it's okay with the select board, to take that $50,000 from some of the monies that they had been willing to deduct from for the fire truck. So that would be either from the $10,000 for the ADA modification, or $50,000 from the grader.
You understand that motion, folks?
No.
Sounds like she would. Sorry?
So I would tell you, Rebecca, that it's not up to the select board, that this is a voter. So you can make that motion and the voters get to vote on it.
So then I'll make the motion to add $50,000 in for the library reallocation, and take that $50,000 out from the one Caterpillar 120G grader.
Do we have a second to that motion? Second and back. All in favor? Oh, discussion, I'm sorry, discussion. Henry.
I'd like to know from the person that made the motion, what has the library done to seek funds based for grants or independent money that isn't taxpayer money to fund the library? Because there's a lot of grant money out there and a lot of philanthropy money that could fund the library that wouldn't cost us anything.
Would you like to answer that in the back? Yeah, I see you're standing there.
That's true, and that is something that we have talked about looking into, but we are nowhere near close enough in this process to be looking into grant money. We're still, I would say, 5 years away anyways from being able to build a new library.
Mr. Raymond.
My question is, why hasn't the library participated in the CIP plan for the last few years?
The first year, we did go and ask to be a part of that, and we were denied. So then we went and we asked for the money on our own. The first year, last year, we did the same thing, and we went and we asked for the money on our own. This year, I dropped the ball on that. I got hurt, and I tore my ACL, and I wasn't at 100%. So that's on me.
Okay, this is just my opinion, not on the board, but the only reason that that $50,000 would be taken out is because we're discussing on a fire truck and the importance of it. And seeing how that's gone away, I don't believe that we should be taken out of the public works for a library at this time. That's just my opinion. You can take that to the bank.
Any other questions?
I know we're talking about the library motion right now, but can we allocate it, I mean, just leave the budget the way it is, we, didn't change it there, but with us giving the select board a verbal permission to juggle things around, like the grader, if we get the grant? Or does, when we vote this, absolutely everything has to go exactly in the pockets we voted for?
Yes.
Has to go in those pockets.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No juggling.
Then maybe we need if we get the grant, we can do a fundraiser, ask people to chip in on the fire truck, because it'd be great. There's other options.
Up front, please.
Not against the library, but we need a truck more than we need a library right now. What happens if we get another flood and there's a fire near a flood area? we need a good equipment. That was my house or my apartment, and if I lived in Highgate, I'd rather have a good working fire department, and they don't just work for fires, they also help people who have, needed help from the flood also. When we were stranded in the flood, me and my mom, they were there and they got us out of that road. We were flooded over, and I do appreciate the fire department and what they do.
Do we have any other questions? So there's been a motion made and seconded to allocate, excuse me, $50,000, is that allocate's the correct word? Take $50,000 to the library fund, take that money from the greater fund. We're all on the page? Is that the motion correct? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. No's have it.
Why have all freaking discussion anyway?
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering what the plan was for funding the Macy Road slide, since there's no line items going forward after this year asking for money.
Well, as I said, we find ourselves in a pickle because our engineers for the first 6 months told us, abandon the road, we don't know how to fix it. And when your engineers tell you that, that leaves you a little disappointed. Yeah, especially with the brand new bridge. And acquiring property to change the road is extremely expensive. And not necessarily funded in any way by your state or federal funds. This particular place we find ourselves in is unusual, but we met last week and had a conference call with both the state and our engineers and several possible companies that might have solutions for us. And at this point, that solution includes concrete rods placed underneath the road to stabilize the entire bank. Having said that, when I questioned what were they going to do about the erosion problem that is actually undermining the road, their response was, well, that's a different project. Well, we asked, have you visited the site? And their answer was no. So you don't have the full information. This is a lot more complicated than these people think it is. We actually now have 2 projects going on the same site. One that needs to fix the erosion problem so that it doesn't undermine these concrete rods that they're talking about placing in this bank. We don't have an estimated on cost right now. The rods, they say $2,000 to $3,000 per square foot, at the minimum 150 feet. But we're not sure yet. We are currently putting in water monitoring wells to see how the spring thaw affects that bank and how much movement there is. But we're at a place right now where we don't have enough information and we don't have enough constructional design to figure out an actual cost.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I was just wondering, I haven't been to the meetings for the Macy project, and probably a lot of people haven't, but can you just speak to us a little bit about how we stand there? Are we tearing the house down? Are we fixing it? What are we doing with it? And what's going to be there?
Point of order.
Question?
Is that part of this?
That would be, that'd be point of order, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's not part of this
That's a,
improvement plan?
It's in the
Okay.
CIP. Well, that's in the CIP, so that would not be point of order. That would be allowed, that question is definitely allowed. Excuse me?
You want to move the motion, please?
Well, we got a question on the floor. I gotta make sure we're doing this right. She asked about the Macy project itself in town. She asked about the project. She didn't ask about the funding. She asked what was going to happen. So I'm confused. I'm sorry. Can you answer the question of what is going, as far as the Macy house? That was the question. What's going on with the Macy house?
Okay.
Thank you.
At the moment, we just barely, if you notice, we got the Steinhauer Cafe down. That is quite a process. So we're, I've been told slow and steady, because I'm the chair of that committee, but there's, I'm going to say that we want the voters involved in everything that we do in that property that the town bought. So we are looking into the next phase, or how you would say, to see what it would take to actually get rid of the properties, so that we can move the property to sale, for a sale, to make it some of our tax money come back. So that was originally where everybody seems to wanted to go with it. We've done all our homework with it, and in the back you can see where we laid everything out to what could happen when everything is gone. So I'm assuming that everybody's still on board with everything that's there that's going to hit the ground. But it's not going to hit the ground tomorrow. It's all in through the Brownsfield for grants and stuff, and that's where we're at with it now. Now that the first property's down, we've got to work on the next to see where we're going with it. So it's still quite a process. It's nothing that's going to happen overnight. I don't know if I answered that question right for you.
Hold on just a second. I allowed that to happen because the question was asked to be moved. So he asked for the question to be moved. Do we have a second on that?
On the amendment. Yeah.
On the amendment? I'm so confused. So my understanding is we're still in discussion of the actual Article 6. We're still on the $450,000 number. We're just in discussion of that. So all the amendments have been voted on.
I move the motion.
The motion's been moved. All in favor? Say by aye. Opposed? Do you understand what that was about, folks? He asked to move the question. It was seconded. So if you vote yes, we're moving on, and we're going to start all over on Article 6. If you vote no, that means you want to keep discussing. Yeah. If you vote yes, we're voting. We're voting on the Article 6. Discussion is closed, correct? So we are voting on Article 6 right now. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $450,000 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the capital improvement plan with an estimated $450,000 be raised by taxes? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. I think this is probably a good time to motion to adjourn for lunch. It's done. It's done. All in favor of recess for lunch? Opposed? All right, we'll reconvene in about 45 minutes. About 45 minutes. I want to call the meeting back to order, please. There was some confusion, unfortunately probably on my part, on that last article. I went back and talked to Wendy. We checked the minutes to make sure it was done properly. The article was moved. We voted to move the article. I reread the article, and it was a yes vote. That was actually on the article itself. So we voted on that Article 6 before lunch. Is everyone understanding what happened here? There was a lot of confusion, and I've been given several words of advice during lunch break, and the most important was Dick Cassidy ever wrote everything down, so you can bet you I'm going to start. It was good advice. Okay, here we go. Article 7. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $751,344 to meet expenses and liabilities of the highway fund with an estimated $600,644 to be raised by taxes? Do we have a motion? Moved by Chris, seconded. Discussion? Mr. Farrell.
Our taxes would go up about $100. Will that include this article?
No, sir.
Yes, it does.
Does? Okay, thank you.
We have any questions? Henry Ringel. I do.
I'd like to know how much of that is for paving and for roads.
$265,000. Plus we have last year's budget to use up for this coming year as well, which will be used up on filled up.
I know we have a question over here. You have a question for us. I know you do. You have a question for us. Her question was, how many miles of dirt road does Highgate still have?
Around 30 miles of dirt road.
Can we get this done 1 mile a year for by
That would make sense, yes, but the problem is we have to maintain the roads we already have paved. And then we've driven down Carter Hill Road, Frontage Road. Those roads are in very disrepair.
Yeah, but 1 mile a year, eventually you'll have them all, and then you don't have this trouble.
I do believe 1 mile is roughly $110,000.
Just a minute, please.
You take every road around.
I live on a dirt road. I live on a dirt road myself. It's not fun.
But I've got to try to walk a handicapped road across that road.
Right here. Either one of you boys can go first. I don't care.
So that 100,000 is just to resurface, correct? So a new road, you're talking much more than that. I mean, the base on the road we're discussing is pretty bad. So you're not just talking 100,000. I don't believe the budget we've been set aside is enough to keep up with the roads we have, let alone add more paved roads. So it's one of either we do our best to try to maintain what we have, or we need to start adding to this budget to continue to move forward with paving our roads. So if we need it, I'm not saying it doesn't need it, but I'm saying this budget does not reflect being able to put new paved roads at this time.
Ty.
So my first question is there, going on this road issue, is there any current requests for the town to take over new roads that have been put in?
Currently, we have rejected one road. That was a private road because it did not meet the specs that they were asked for when they had their original permit. We did have one new road, Boone Drive, that got added to the town's list of roads. But otherwise, we don't have any pending at the moment.
Okay, it would be my recommendation to the board to consider not taking any new roads because we have all we can do maintaining what we have on that number.
Mr. Noel.
In general, if you're talking about rehabbing or redoing the road, try to get it up to, which is 80,000 pounds minimum. A lot of these roads are only good for 30, 24, 30,000. You're talking $1 million high. Think of the Highgate Franklin Road. To get it up to that condition, it costs $1 million high.
Do we have any other questions? No other questions? We're right here. Mr. Yates.
So this is, I don't know, question, comment, for our lane miles per plow route. We're the highest town around. So it's not an easy problem to fix. Yeah, the fourth plow truck, you've got the expense of buying the truck, you got to store a truck, you've got to hire a driver. But we have all these paved roads that we're still using a hot mix of sand and salt on. Versus just running straight salt on them. When you run straight salt, you have less overtime, you have less trips, no cleanup. The shoulders don't build up and deteriorate your road by holding water on the sides of them. And there's still a little bit of debate on if it improves the water quality or not. So it's not only going to improve your paved roads, it's going to improve your dirt roads by not putting so much salt in our sand, so we're not dumping a ton of salt on dirt roads and loosening that waste up.
And I make a comment to Mark Bassett's comment earlier. You will see that we did increase the stone and gravel budget considerably this year.
Mr. Shai.
What is the highway fund budget in this book?
Yeah, so those are in here, that's page 58 and 59.
Thank you.
Mr. Rainville.
I guess I would ask that we spend some of our money in the highway department to take the shoulders off roads. Because if you notice where the shoulders are high, oftentimes the pavement will be compromised in those areas. So, in my opinion, if we maintain our shoulders so the water runs off the road rather than staying in the road, it would cost us less to maintain that same section of road.
Yeah, that's definitely been neglected in the past years, and the plan this summer is to, one, finish up Mill Hill. We have an obligation to fill a grant there, and then that's a big project. That and trimming trees along the roads so we can see.
Yes, sir. Right in front.
Mike Kravitz, on the question of salt on roads, has there been any discussion of using brine rather than straight salt? It's been used in other urban areas, it's used in Lake George, and I wondered if there's been any discussion on that.
No discussion to my knowledge, but probably something we could look into.
deterioration of your vehicles.
Well, yeah, they say and the application of it is huge. If you put it on too early, too late, it's no good. Yes, sir, in the back, Mr. Blue.
Who takes care of our sidewalks now?
Who takes care of the sidewalks?
Currently, it's a mixture between Parks and Rec volunteers and town guys. I've seen Ty in it. I've seen Brian do it too, or just you, Ty? Yeah, Brian Spears, and then I've seen Nick in it. But it's between the two departments.
Has there been any thought into looking at the sidewalk when you're going up West Village that sits under water? Or is it all?
Lampkin Street, in front of the Catholic Church.
It has been brought up, and we have to look into that. I think we're trying to get back with the contractor and the engineers to come up with a solution.
There was discussion of doing drainage on the frontage road. Is that in this budget, and where exactly are you talking about doing the drainage at?
Yeah, that's a grant that covers that, and that's towards the north end of it, correct? Yeah, towards the north end of it.
It covers from little.
We have any other questions?
Bruce would like to add a little more to that.
Yes, sir.
The project for Furniture Road is actually a pretty substantial project in terms of improving drainage, repaving quite a bit of, I don't remember the mileage or anything, but repaving quite a bit of it, and improving culverts. So it's going to be a fairly large project starting this coming summer. Oh, you'll probably not thank us when it gets going, but when it's done, it will be a lot better.
Yes, sir.
You guys said you have a hard time just keeping up with the roads we have now. So is this number that's being proposed an actual amount to fix and go beyond just keeping up? Or is this just to keep up with the current roads we have and not actually fix them so we're not constantly doing Band-Aids?
Both. We're absolutely trying to improve things. That's why we add money to the stone budget to try to build up our roads, our back roads. Paving is to resurface, not to pave new. That's about it. Yep, there's some culvert money in there.
So then I have a second question of what would be your kind of guys' dream number if you could then actually not just do some of these roads, but do more than just some, so it's not such a big project consistently.
I'd just like to say that over the 15 years that I've been serving on the highway department, I tend to see more extreme weather in the last 10 years that we were up in the gravel, in the blacktop, to try to keep up, but I'd say the extreme weather is beating us.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
So I know that we've reposted part-time help for the Public Works Department. We're struggling finding people to be interested in a $16 an hour wage for part-time help. seeing we can go to any fast food restaurant and probably make the same amount. We got $3,000 budgeted for the coming year budget. Do you feel that's just enough to fill in for vacations and leave, or does that help us get some help for these guys when we have a winter like this?
I mean, that money was for hiring someone for vacations and to help out with projects. We need an extra trucker. If you have an operator, you can still run 3 trucks. But I would not be opposed to raising that to help out these guys when they're working 80, 90 hours a week, plowing around the clock to get some relief in there so they can sleep a little bit.
And do you feel that you're going to find somebody for the 16, or do we need to today make an amendment to this article to raise it so we can get somebody in there? Because I know what CDL drivers are starting out at.
Well, since we haven't filled that, that's probably a good starting point to raise it. That's just what we've offered in the past, and that's why we kept it there.
Sharon, how much more money did you put toward gravel for this year coming than what you actually spent last year?
So if you look under stone and gravel, page 59, you'll see that actual spent was $58,946. We're putting it up to 65,000, or leaving it at 65,000, I should say, to allow us to have that extra cushion to add more stone and gravel.
$6,000 worth of gravel, 30 miles of dirt road. I feel that we should ask the town people for more money to get after these dirt roads.
I wouldn't argue that at all, and if we do look towards the paving new roads, then you're working on your base to get that going. So I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yes, ma'am.
The only thing I have to say about the gravel, living on a dirt road, is all that gravel is in the ditch. If it goes down, you can bet within a week or 2 that all that gravel is in the ditch. Or on your lawn, one or the other, but it's not if it's in the ditch. I don't find it the best thing on the road.
One thing we noticed in the past year or two is the road mix that we've been putting on. It's more marbly than in the past, and it tends to roll. So what we did late summer last year was we started mixing more fines with it, and that seemed to hold better. Correct me if I'm wrong, Butch.
Any other questions?
One thing, you know, I've been a farmer too, but something that we got to realize here is that something we didn't do 20 years ago is these feed trucks, corn trucks, that are running these roads every day. We got them. We got farmers in town here that got land way up on the gore. These farmers can't share land. They got to travel these roads with these big trucks, and that's a lot of our problem right there. If you look at corn season, these trucks there's all kinds of corn. They don't even cover the roads. But we make everybody else cover the roads. I'm a farmer too, and I love farming, but I'm going to tell you right now, that's where a lot of our problem is right there, is we got a lot of trucks running these roads, the farm trucks. And manure trucks and everything. If you look on a day in Highgate, there's a lot of traffic, and it's farm trucks. And you look at some of these dirt roads, they're moving that sand. They're moving that dirt. You look at take Cassidy Road, try to run it and go up that road. And, you know, and I know the farmers here don't want to hear it, but it's the truth.
Mrs. Ringo. We're up front, CJ.
Thank you, Richard, for pointing that out about farmers. I am a farmer, and I think they get bashed a lot. And yes, we do put a lot of trucks onto the road, but I think we also try to put a lot of money back into the community, but that's not what I'm speaking for. The reason I'm speaking is we're very quick to want to cut budgets and not give money and not give enough money to help bring in new employees. But I think one thing that we need to remember today is that most of our people in our town are volunteers. We have a volunteer fire department, and they're not volunteer our highway department. However, I don't know about you guys, but I get up in the middle of the night and at 4 o'clock in the morning when I see a plow truck going down the Gore Road and they're plowing like crazy and it's snowing, and then you get back up at 7 o'clock and that road has still been plowed through. So you know they've been through more than one time. And I think that we really should give a big hand of applause to our town highway people for being up all hours of the night during this very difficult winter. It's been a hard winter for everybody, and yet I have not been able not to get off the Gore Road. And the Gore Road's a horrific road to drive, but I've been able to get off of it every time. And I think a big round of applause should be for our highway department. Thank you.
We have any other questions? Jeez.
Has there been any talk or thought of looking at some of our class 3 road inventory that has 1, 2 houses on it and turning those into a class 4 road so we don't have to waste stone and plow truck time? And I mean, I rode in a plow truck one day and go down a class 3 road and you can't turn the thing around. To me, it doesn't make sense that we have these roads in inventory, we're putting money in them every year, and they're taking time off of a plow route where it could be spent better elsewhere.
Yeah, that was just looking into that. Mr. Flint, do you have a question?
Mr. Yates said, well, what he just said, we got a lot of, on the other hand, I'll fend for the farmers on this one, because we got some dirt roads where milk trucks got to go down, and they're a class 3 road, and I think that'd be wrong to do something like that. The fire department's still got to go down there, them roads, so we can't change that. Thank you.
All right, hopefully I'm not as loud as Richard, but we have weight limits on these roads that are in this town, and if we do, why aren't they being enforced?
Yes, we do have weight limits restrictions on several of our roads, and especially the bridge in East Highgate. As far as enforcement, during the spring of the year, a permit can be purchased at the town clerk's office to allow you to run extra weight on those roads. As far as regular enforcement, that's left to our sheriff department, who we have a contract with.
Any other questions? One more time.
I'm going to make a motion to amend this article. I'm going to add $7,000 into the temporary help wages to make it an even $10,000. I don't know what the total would be for the article. And I've added another for stone and gravel, I would add another $15,000 to make it an even $80,000.
we have a second on that? We got a second? Discussion. Mr. Noel.
In the temp, it's at 3,000, correct? You want to raise it to 10 or to 6?
Any other discussion? Yeah, this is on the amended, this is on the amendment.
For if somebody else with more knowledge would like me to amend that, I'm willing to do that too.
With that said, I go for 6, double it. Instead of 3,000, 6,000. Oh, yeah. 10 total.
Can anybody say how many temp hours there actually are? Is this actually a salary or per hour? This is per hour, so we really don't know exactly how much, right? This is just the suggested, this is just the budget?
You have an answer for me? So the question was, with that question, how much overtime is also being put in?
I think that kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, your temp hours plus the overtime hours, because that's the whole point of this part-time position, is to help those guys out, offset, if you will.
Yeah, last year overtime was $18,752.
So it also is going to depend on the weather. So this year has been a hellacious winter. These guys were sometimes working around the clock. When that happens, things happen. We accidentally hit the building. We're tired, we're exhausted. We're not doing as good a job as we could if we had more rest. So that's part of the reason that we had put that ad in the paper and on social media, because at the rate it was going, our guys were gonna burn out. And we need to take care of our guys. They do a fantastic job, but they needed help this year just because it's been so bad and so busy. So, is $10,000 enough? I don't know. It depends on the weather.
Yes, sir.
One of the reasons I'm proposing to move this up is because what I'm hearing is we're having a hard time finding somebody for that rate. And this would give the select board the ability to change that rate to something that we could get somebody in there to do. Maybe not add more hours, base hours for temp hire, but pay somebody that you can get there that you can count on.
Yes, the raised wage is a good idea. Also, we've reached out to other towns and other town clerks and highways departments because we're all having the same problem. We're having difficulty finding part-time help. So we've reached out to see if we can come and establish some kind of group. That maybe there's 4 or 5 spare drivers and we can call on one of these drivers and share with the other towns at the same time. That idea is in its infancy, but it's an idea we had. Maybe we could get everybody some help in our area. Because right now, Franklin has helped us, Swanton has helped us, we've helped Franklin, we've helped Swanton. We have an excellent relationship, neighbor helping neighbor, and we want to continue that. But sometimes we all need a little help.
Yes, ma'am.
Do they have any drivers that they can use as part-time replacements? Do you guys? No? Anybody? The guys do an excellent job on the roads.
We have a Butch in the back, please.
Huh?
The Butch in the back wants to answer that.
We have been utilizing one temp driver off and on throughout winter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that you guys do a great job. The roads have been in excellent shape all winter long. And I have no complaints with that whatsoever. But you don't know if there's somebody that they can train as a part-timer. You know, I know that.
And that's why I think Ty wants to amend this to get raise more money so we can hire someone.
They know what they need more than we do, but, yeah.
Henry?
So, some of the businesses that I do business with are having the same issue as far as finding drivers. So, and I won't mention any names, but there's a couple of businesses, what they did is one of them tends to be a summer business, and the other business tends to be more of a winter business. So what they've done is basically work together to hire these drivers. So they're full-time drivers, but they're working 2 different jobs half a year. It's a little bit different of a bear, but would something like that be approachable between 2 or 3 towns and having somebody that's not necessarily full-time, but would be on call, let's say on a Monday for Highgate, on a Tuesday for Franklin or Sheldon or whatever. But it was a good concept that these other businesses thought of, and they just thought it would be something to think about.
The problem is with getting drivers, it's not just the driver's ability. You got number 1 CDL. You got number 2, you got to pass a physical. You got number 3, you got to do a drug test. Now, there's not any professional driver that even wants to go out there and try for 16 bucks an hour. And the point was well brought up. We increase that, we can price some, come into a part-time situation for the town of Highgate. But they also have to have those requirements. CDLA, physical, and then the drug test. If you don't pass all those, you're not legal to drive.
Yeah, I believe it is a CDLB.
All right, I know we're all talking about working issues and stuff. I work in a different organization, and everybody is crying for help because nobody wants to work anymore, okay? You can't find part-time help. They're looking for the handouts, so offering more money is not going to solve the problem. There's a shortage of people that want to work. And it's just not the road crew, it's out in the real world, it's the same.
There is a shortage for sure, but by raising the rate, I think you can entice the people that do want to work come this way.
We have any other questions?
Some businesses pay for their men to get that CDL license. Better than the census.
Hey lady, talk to the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We have any other questions? Okay, so I did some rough math. Let's see if my rough math is the same as your rough math.
This is the vote on the amendment.
This is the vote on the amended amount. Huh, the numbers are the same.
Hey!
I wrote it down, Dick. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $773,344 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the highway fund with an estimated $622,644 to be raised by taxes? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Hold on, please.
This is the amendment on ties.
This is the amendment to ties. This is not actually on the article. This is the amendment to ties amendment. And this vote is for ties amendment to raise it to those numbers. You want me to read it again?
Yes.
This is to amend this article. Article 7. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $773,344 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the Highway Fund with an estimated $622,644 to be raised by taxes. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. This is actually on the actual article now. Do we have to go through the motion thing again? Do we?
Yes.
Move the article? Second? All in favor of moving the article, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Article's been moved. Okay, we're voting on it. Article 7. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $773,344 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the Highway Fund with an estimated $622,644 to be raised by taxes? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Article 8. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $1,009,801 to meet expenses and liabilities of the general fund with an estimated $405,479 to be raised by taxes? Do we have a motion? So moved and seconded. Discussion? Any questions? Yes, sir. Right here in the front. Mr. Ferlin.
So looking under other revenues, I was just curious how Casella's, the cell tower, those two specifically, are calculated every year, seeing that they're different every year.
Shelley is saying it's a 2% increase this year.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I guess we're ready to vote. Article 8. Go ahead.
So this ties back to the fire truck that we've talked a lot about. Is there somewhere in the fire department budget that we can add either the 16,000 to make up the difference, or we add the 66,000 in there and know we're covered in case this grant falls through? This is a question to the select board. So in the fire department budget, do we put it under the line item for that truck? Do we put it under general supplies? So on page 53, is there a good place to put money so that we know we can go ahead with this purchase?
So I would say that you would have the authority to propose an amendment to add a line item. Right, you could put it under general supplies, but that would, as far as I'm concerned, be a voter issue, whether they want to take payment.
Mr. Schreiber.
Okay, so the says $1,009,801, and I'm looking at the end of the general fund on page 52. Correct me if I'm wrong. It says total expenditures $157,928. So where is the 1 million? Where's the figure that's in the Article 8? The 1,009,801.
So Claude, that's the general fund alone. And then you have the 1 million includes the fire department, the library,
Parks and Rec, the arena. So if you add up all of the departments together, you would come up with the 1 million. 157 is strictly the general fund, the town operating expenditures.
So that number in the article doesn't show up anywhere in this as a total?
I have it broken out on a spreadsheet if you want to come see it.
So it doesn't show in the book though?
You would literally have to go in and add up all of the expenditure line items.
Okay.
Yeah. Also on another note, just from Chris's comment, the auditors will have a field day with me if we put $50,000 in general supplies and I spend it on a fire truck. So if you were going to make a motion, I would add it to the actual fire truck line item. It is not saying that it is for a purchase, that is what they use for that truck. I think that would be your safest way to go. So they would have money to spend for that truck, whether it be maintenance or what have you. If it's not spent, it's not spent, it stays in their fund balance, but please do not put it in general supplies.
Yes, sir.
Shelley, would it throw up any red flags by putting it in that, maybe put it in the next truck we're thinking of replacing and then easing them?
I would
Say put the 50 in the 2000.
just not maybe include the word purchase, to purchase in your motion.
Mr. Perro.
I thought we already voted on the fire truck. I thought that was closed.
You did vote not to appropriate the 50,000, I believe, but this is something over and again, something different for this regular town budget.
My question would be for Heidi. Heidi, if we do anything with the fire department, is it going to change the grant?
I don't think I can just answer that question simply as that. I can say that to get the grant that is on the table right now, that it looks very favorable, by setting that money into the CIP, you're going to be working against the case I'm making that you have a need for those funds. So,
is it going to look like we have more money than what we've actually said we have?
I don't think it would necessarily raise any red flags for the grant, but you may be setting a precedent that is very cumbersome and a little bit edgy. I would refer that question back to Shelley. How are auditors going to view those kind of moves? And would that then require another vote to move those funds for that truck purchase? I can't answer that. Okay.
Mr. Moderator, he's doing a special meeting.
Yep, go ahead, sir.
I would suggest that one possibility would, if we're not successful in obtaining the grant for the fire truck, would be for us to call a special town meeting to move or vote for new funds to cover that circumstance. In other words, wait and see what happens with the grant and then act accordingly.
Mr. Flint, do you have a question? Mr. Rainville, right here to the right, please.
So am I correct or incorrect that, like I said before, if it comes to that point, the select board could borrow money to finish paying off that truck if that comes to need? Is that a yes or a no?
That's a no, because you do not grant the select board the right to borrow money.
Yeah,
You,
with an emergency vehicle, you just have the right.
oh, I stand corrected. So Shelley tells me that if it's an emergency vehicle, we would have the
And
right.
to go along with that, are we a rich town, are we a poor town, are we in the middle of the road? I look at ourselves as kind of in the middle of the road. But if we keep voting money in here, we're going to look like a rich town. And a lot of the grant processes are going to go away for us, in my opinion. I know it takes money to make money, but I think you have to draw a line. And I just feel the line's being drawn way too far to one side. Just my opinion.
Well, and to that, very little of your tax base is from the town. It's your school systems. So I would really encourage you, when it comes to your school budgets, to become involved. That's where your property tax comes in.
Mr. Flint.
Let's leave this alone. We've been beating this dead horse all day. And we're going to get it. If we get the grant, great. If we don't, we'll come back next year, we'll get a fire truck. Plain and simple. Leave it alone.
Just one question. I think earlier it was said that if we didn't buy it this year, that the cost would go up significantly next year due to tariffs. Is that correct? And how much would it go up?
Yes, so Mr. Yates did mention that already. So yes, very few items unfortunately go down in cost. Your cost is going to go up. You have a year waiting period for that vehicle to be produced to us. You have the tariff situation that has happened with President Trump, which has affected your steel prices tremendously. How much that is exactly, I don't know.
I believe it was said earlier that that number was 7%. Ty, and then Mr. Rowell. Go ahead, Ty.
Like Richard said, we are beating a dead horse. That's fire truck. The only question I had with the fire department budget is, am I correct that the fire department has an auxiliary fund? Partially what lunch was today goes into the auxiliary fund, and if so, what's the balance and what are future plans of using that balance?
Joe, I'm throwing this to you. It isn't in the budget.
Well, our auxiliary fund is totally...
I've been on the point of order. The point of order was that this is not in the budget. So if it's not in the budget, it's not something we're supposed to be talking about. Because it is a separate entity from the town budget. Question's been moved and seconded. All in favor of moving the question? Oh, yes. I apologize. Mr. Rowell, I apologize. I gave him the acknowledgement.
All I wanted to say is the tariffs are already in place. It's going to be a year before we get the truck anyhow. If anything, probably the cost will go down if we get the tariffs resolved. So I wouldn't worry about that.
I apologize, Mr. Noel. I did acknowledge him before I accepted that. Okay, the question's been moved and seconded. All in favor of moving the question, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So we're back to that was a motion to amend that to $50,000? There was no motion? Okay. So we're voting on the article.
Which is?
Has been amended.
As amended, right?
This has not been amended.
Did we amend it to 773.3?
Oh, we're over that one. We're past that one. We're on the next one.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
There's not just me confused. Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, thank you. Oh boy.
Article 8. Shall the voters of the town of Highgate appropriate $1,009,801 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the general fund with an estimated $405,479 to be raised by taxes? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Article 9, to transact any other business legally or authorized to be transacted, considered proper and necessary when met. Do we have a motion? And second. Discussion.
I have a couple things.
Ms. Bosquet, you have a couple things?
I I just have a couple of recognitions. One of our firefighters has been nationally recognized by the National Fire Protection Association. And congratulations to our very own Liza L. Kaminsky for being selected as National NFPA Rising Star for 2019. Liza was identified for her outstanding work in fire and life safety education. She has consistently used the National Fire Protection Association materials and curriculum in creative and efficient ways. She has also just demonstrated excellence and innovation in reaching out to not only our community, but to surrounding areas as well. This is a great honor for our community and for Liza and her family, and congratulations. We're very proud of her. On that note, Liza would like me to tell you that there are free fire detectors at the fire department booth that are available to all members of our community. Second recognition goes to one of our own. Steve LaFar is ending his term today, and I thank him very much for his counsel and as for his advice, sometimes his attitude, but he's done a great job for you, so I would like to thank him for his service. We would be happy to have you back anytime.
Anyone else have anything that they talk about? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is the proper time or not, but since I have an active audience,
Throw it out there, see what happens.
I will avail myself of this opportunity. If you'll bear with me. I believe many of the voters of Highgate don't recall when the now referred to Mesha property was once owned by Court Louts. As a child, I remember the privately owned home as beautiful, well-maintained, and having a picture-pretty lawn interspersed with shrubs and flower gardens. With many years of neglect, it sits on the corner of one of Highgate's busy streets, the St. Armand Road and Route 78. It is slated for demolition. This is very disturbing to me and should have a similar effect on the townspeople of Highgate. Once a building of historical significance is erased, the undying damage is done, forever gone. I'm asking you, wake up, Highgaters. Should we let this happen? And that's my take on this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? On that note, I guess I take a motion to adjourn. Oh yeah, we gotta vote on our, almost made it through. Article 9, to transact any other business legally authorized to be transacted, considered proper and necessary when met. All in favor, proceed by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. I guess a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor of adjournment? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, folks.